Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and welcome to today's training on YouTube. Oh, yeah. Today we're going to be talking about something quite unique, the secrets of the Grandmasters. A lot of people don't know about what that exactly means, so I'm going to give you some very good insight of what we'll cover today. Now, I'm not a Grandmaster, so you're probably thinking, Valerie, you're not a Grandmaster. Why do you actually explain what the Grandmasters do and how the Grandmasters think if you're not even a Grandmaster? So it's going to be very interesting for me to speak of it because even though I'm not a Grandmaster, I know what masters or Grandmasters are using in order to improve their game, to improve their chess. So today we're going to be talking about how you can provoke a weakness, how you can convert an advantage, how do Grandmasters try to use prophylaxis in their games, how to actually reduce certain threats and pawns formations. It's like how to master the principle of the two weaknesses, how to calculate, how to build small advantages. Oh, a lot of stuff I'm going to talk to you about today. But more importantly, understand that you don't necessarily need to get better at all this stuff. You just need to pick up as much as you can from these practical concepts and those ideas so you can remember. That's actually what you have to keep in mind. Very, very importantly. So before we get started, I'd like to know if everybody could hear me all right and you're all joining in. While you're actually doing that, I wanted to say that you can all give me your comments and suggestions on the chat. So please do that. And okay, now somebody says video is not working. I haven't started explaining anything yet. So yeah, just seems Valeri's late. Yeah, a few minutes. I'm sorry about that. No, it's okay. It's all good. Yeah, I hope you're all joining in. So any late joins will feel happy because they didn't miss anything. So today I'm going to talk about a few impressive games. I mean, yes, don't worry. It's not going to be just like boring master games like, okay, the Grandmaster is thinking do this. No, I'm going to back it up with some awesome suggestions that you can immediately take on and use in your games right away. So this is going to be very cool. So stay tuned and do not switch to broadcast. The first game I like to start is very beautiful. It's actually a complete game. And it was a game that I'll never forget, really, because it was so deep that I was like, this is a game I want to play with. This is like something I want to be able to master. Now, of course, it's not very easy to master such type of play, but you'll understand when I show it to you. So give me 1 second. I'm going to copy that game right now. It was played by the great Garry Kasparov. Everybody have heard about who Kasparov was. So Garry Kasparov and his opponent was the famous Swedish Grandmaster Ulf Andersson. My dad taught me that game, I believe, when I was younger, and it was very impressive because I think I remember it, you know, like for quite some time. So let's talk a little bit about this game and what happened. So Kasparov was white. Ulf Andersson, Grandmaster Andersson, was playing with black. And actually, the game started with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, and then there was knight f3, b6, and a3. Now, if you're wondering about what is white doing in this case, I'd like to point out that the way white is playing, he just wants to achieve one thing, and this is to cut off the bishop with b4 opportunity by black. This is done so that black doesn't get the chance to move his bishop on the b4, pin the knight, or cause any problems. It's theoretical, so there's really no strategic value. If you're looking for a strategic value, it's just not here, but it's still very interesting. So a3. Now, I know this game. I've seen. Okay, I think I know this game. Yeah, well, it's classic. You could have seen it, but don't worry about it. I'm going to bring some really, really cool points to it. So just stay tuned. Now, just wanted to mention while you're actually on the line, if you check the link below this video, you're going to see 60% discount of a fantastic training package. It's actually a great package, and you know, it's a Grandmaster package. So check it out. It has some amazing lectures. It's by Grandmaster Perlstein, I believe. You can have a look. It's like 4 power parts on how to go on with the dragon. It's awesome. So check it out. In any case, let's take a look and see what happened in this game. A3, and after A3, black did bishop B7, so white continued with knight C3, just normally bringing up his knight. Okay, so then black plays along with knight E4. So he moved up with his knight to the E4, and the position is kind of cool. Knight takes D4, bishop takes D4, knight, and now we have to figure out what to do. So because I do want to make this lecture as interactive as possible and as interesting as possible, here's my question to you guys. What do you think white's got to do now? Do you think that white has to advance and go along maybe with some attacking move, or you think white's got to do something else? Take a second and try to think of it yourself. Like, what is white's best way to go? Yeah, one of you said dragon is destroyed with the Yugoslav attack. Not really. It's the strongest variation for sure, but it's not always, that easy. So anyway, what is white supposed to do now? Knight D2. Interesting. I don't think that it's a bad move. It's a fine move with which we could basically push away the opponent's bishop, and then as sooner we do this, we will drive black down. It's a beautiful move, very important, very strong, and very valuable too. So that's what we got to do. The knight D2 move was simply excellent. Now, somebody will actually look at this position and say, Valeri, you are not right to advise me to play such a move. This is a backward move with which I move my piece twice, and that goes against the principles. Why would you tell me to play a move like that? Now, remember this. One of the secrets of Grandmasters is that they basically stay away from risky positions. To achieve that, they often fight purposefully with specific moves against the opponent's most advanced and active pieces. Seeing that bishop on e4 made white to immediately consider pushing it, because the best of all deals was to advance again towards the center. It was a great move to play. It was very good and effective. Well, that's what we need. Step by step, the rest is going to come by itself. We don't have to worry. It's great. Let's see about that. So actually what happened in this case after knight d2 is that black moved the bishop away. He could have played it on the b7, but he chose to move it to g6. So I'd like to know, guys, what you would do in this case. So yeah, Perston is awesome. Absolutely. I love his lectures. I think he's great. So yes, check this out. It's like his package is amazing. That's why it's actually being offered, because it's really great. 60%. It's a cool price. So check it out. It's very, very cheap. Now, okay, when you know the principles well, then you can start breaking them. Absolutely. This is a good thing, of course. Now, let's talk about that. So e4, gain control, e4, right? I mean, that's it. No, that's not it. See, the e4 move makes a lot of sense, but there is a little problem about that move. And that's actually the reason why white didn't play it. The little problem going with this move is that e4 is going to push a little too far in the center. And we don't want to do this. We don't want to advance too quickly without actually taking the time to prepare. So, in retrospect, why is this move not going to work? If white plays e4, black would do d5. c6 to the d, likely e6 to the d. And then if we advance here, he'll attack our base and then challenge us on the e5. So I don't know. I don't feel like this is so great here. It's just not perfect. You see, white didn't want to do this. What white preferred to do was, instead of e4, to actually commit to a move like g3. And this is important. In the opening, you do not attack. Unless you have some very special attacking possibilities, usually what you care about in most times is preparation. It's the setup. It's like the possibility for you to gather around and bring your pieces on the most necessary positions available, step by step. What white does with g3 is prepare an incredible position for the bishop. Now, somebody will say, Valeri, this is not great. I mean, the bishop isn't going to be too special there. Well, we can argue about that. I think fianchettos are great as long as we can give it purpose. And the purpose is definitely there. It's a very strong place for the bishop, and we would love to have it around. Okay, well, I think it's all good there. So after g3, black played knight to c6, and then white played e3. Yeah. Now remember the following. If you want to have a successful strategy in the middle game, you must get just a successful pawn structure and formation. I call it good skeleton in the opening. Because when you create a good skeleton, which will provide you with good piece activity and control, you can do so much more. With the move of pawn to e3, white was able to set up the pawns perfectly so that the bishop doesn't get to worry. And the dark square bishop, on the other hand, will find itself very helpful on the b2 position. Now, something you get to realize is that black's position isn't going to be good. Yes, there are no threats. Yes, there are no possibilities for white to attack and win. But you see, the prospects are just not that good. If you look more closely into that, you realize that black has very weak prospects at the moment. And one of the reasons for this is because he is passive and backward with most of his pieces in the development. That actually adds a lot of value to the white position in his own resources. So you see, one of the things that you have to do no matter what is always to try and care about things like speed, things like control activity. See, forget about early attacks. Unless you're sure it will help you to win, all grandmasters know that these attacks create a fake idea of success. It's like you look at it and you say, oh, this is so cool. But this is because you're only looking at it from one perspective, how it looks, not what it does, especially not what it does in the longer run. So you have to be more careful about that if you want to succeed. And so, actually, after that move, things are looking good. And yes, more or less, position 2. Okay, so what happened after that move? Okay, knight c6, pawn to e3, and then black played with the move of a6. Don't ask me about why did black play that move. I really have no idea. Whatever we say, though, I think that he didn't have to do this. I mean, it was a bad move. Oh yeah, it was really not that great. So anyway, after that happened, I think it was pretty good for whites. So he actually decided to continue with a6. And, well, you want me to tell you, right? Not really. You got to find it yourself. What do you think white's got to do in this position? Think about this. Got the space. Get ready. Anyone? h4, bishop g2, c5. I think all these moves work, but they're rather mediocre. h4 and c5 wouldn't make any trouble. Black would take it, but b4 does. Because what b4 does best is that it helps us to get space. It helps us to get opportunities. More importantly, it helps you to expand. This is what we care about most, expanding. Gaining the space and the resources the way we want them, the way we need them. This is good stuff now. Well, that's the truth, and it worked out really well. Actually, after b4, black did not like this, so he decided, you know what, I'm going to counter. I'm going to play b5 now. This is a very weird move. If you're wondering, it's a weird move. It wasn't good, for sure, but it's weird because, I mean, who would really play b5? Why would he do such a move? I don't know. I guess you didn't know too, but I guess black wanted to just come forward and make something out of it. Like he wanted to make something good and interesting and just kind of exciting in a way. Did it work? Well, I guess it depends on how you do. How would you choose to respond to that move? So try to think like a strong player right now. What would you do? Would you like to push up, or would you choose to do something else? Think about this from the white perspective. What should white choose to do now? Keep tension. Sounds good. Sounds good. The truth is, after c6 to b8x to be white simplified, and instead of taking that pawn, which a lot of people would do, and they will go for, black will go with knight x b4, knight c2. White simply picked up to make the move of bishop to b2 to happen. Much easier, a whole lot simpler, and more importantly, a great move with which we could just keep the pieces together. It was good. It just was. It was one of the best move candidates to go with. Very interesting, easy to play, and good. Remember, the opponent will drive many provocations at you. He's going to make you feel like you can start an attack or like you can be very successful, but unless you can actually realize a good way to damage his position, do not get lured by his intentions. He will not give up so easily. So he's going to try to lure you to make you just bite and then get in a worse position. Kasparov knew that ultimately black's strategy is going to fail him. However, if we go ahead and if we hurried as well as the same way he does, we are just going to lose our momentum and our pressure. So let's be patient. We don't need anything more right now, but good, solid patience. And it was great. So let's take a look. After the move of bishop to b2, things are definitely good looking. Of course, black plays knight to a7 to protect. Now you see the weakness that he created pushes him down. In fact, it's worse than if we took the pawn, because now if we took the pawn and let's say he didn't have bishop to knight x b4, he'd be able to free up and then just develop his pieces actively. Now we've tied him down to a passive defense. So now this is an important moment. He's tied down, his king is in the middle, and the remainder of his pieces are also pretty bad. Well, let's face it, it's not a good position. It's by any means. So what to do? This is a good question. What to do? And here's a good thing for me to mention, that what you really want or wish to do in such a position is either develop safely, as I've mentioned, or do something else. There exist two ways for you to get a better position in chess. Through forcing, reinforcing, well, let's go at three ways, and restrictive moves. The forcing moves are when we create a pressure problem, when we make something like we like to challenge against the opponent and make him worry. So that's why we call them forcing. They're great when they do work. A lot of times they don't work, but we'd like to make it work if it does. Then we have the reinforcing moves, which are usually the development moves with which we just get new pieces into the play and we make it work. And then finally, we have the restrictive moves with which we restrict our opponent from making something. Now, forcing, reinforcing, and restrictive moves. Okay. What you'd like to do is to start thinking about the forcing moves, because whenever there is a forcing continuation, you will make your opponent, you will force him to defend, and that's a big thing. So forcing moves are always the best to consider. Then we have, of course, the restrictive moves. If you see something important that your opponent wants to do, you'd like to pick up a move that will help you to restrict him. It will help you to actually cut off his possibilities. Fortunately, right now, there is no intention for black to do something. So I guess we can just forget about that. And then we have reinforcing moves. The quiet developing moves in terms of bishop g2, knight f3, queen e2, and so on, will be considered rather reinforcing. They're fine moves, there's no problem with them, but they're considered reinforcing because we just like to reinforce our position. Now, your goal in such situations is to always begin looking at the forcing moves, because if there is a forcing move, it's not only going to give you time, but it can help you to become really very successful with the tactics and everything you begin. It may even help you to take over the initiative, which you can imagine how important that is. So White started thinking about that. In 80% of the times, forcing moves wouldn't exist. However, you'd like to think about them, because if they do exist, this could mean a great opportunity for you, which you'll otherwise simply miss. So looking at White right now, he knew about his queen e2, knight f3, bishop g2 on other moves of this kind, but he also knew there was h4. which was a super cute move, attacking or going right after the black bishop and getting ready to attack and trap him quickly. This was an excellent move, I think. Very good, very consistent, very committed, so we can make our stuff work. After the move of pawn to the h4, suddenly white lashes onto the king side, and then black played h6. Black tries to give his bishop a little flight square so he can breathe. Yeah, I mean, it was reasonable for him to do so. He has to do it after all. So what to do right now? So like, just where do we go next? I think white's doing good, but then the question is, okay, we may be doing great, we may be doing really, really well, but that doesn't mean anything. We have to achieve something. h5 will only be responded by bishop h7. And while I'm certainly not against the idea, I think it's fine to advance the pawn. There's nothing more. So I want to hear is anybody has a suggestion of what white should do. Now let me see what you guys have to say. Forcing moves may develop opponent's position. No, they will push him on defending, not on developing. It's important to know. Castling is impossible. Why? It's possible if black or white gets the bishop out of the way. Weak light squares? Sure. Trade the light square bishops? Sure, but how? Bishop g2 will be met by c6 or rook b8. There's something else. Restrain? Not really. e4 may look good, but then black will just keep up the development. So thank you for your suggestion, but no. There's got to be something better we could do. See, I feel like the one thing that white needs to do is to find a way or a possibility to get something more tangible. Let's put it this way. How? How can we get something more tangible out of this? Well, if we want to get something more tangible, we've got to find a possibility or a chance to threaten him. It's never so easy to do, but it's actually important nonetheless. So what white did was great. I'd like to point that out. He played d5, and that was awesome. This move really shifts the whole position in a very specific direction that black is really not prepared to handle. The move opens up the position to white's pieces, but more so what it does is that it actually destroys the defense or the stability that black has around this position. It was a great move, a very essential idea that helps out big time. Why does white play a move like d5? Now, how do we understand that move? Obviously, it was a great move, but how? And more importantly, how to find a move like that. Remember this. Every attack you make, every successful attack that a Grandmaster is making is based on the follow-up. This means if we make a move like h5 or even bishop g2, or maybe h5 and bishop g2, these threats will be very nice, but at a certain point, we will not have any continuation. Follow up, and as a result, our steam of the attack will be gone. It was great turn. We had one challenge and another, but then that was it. You know, there's no way how we can carry on posing more problems or creating more threats versus black's position. Now, as opposed to that, the move d5 actually provides us, even at the cost of a sacrifice, it provides us with a great follow-up. White opens up the position just a tiny bit more so he can have many upcoming threats to follow up with, which is brilliant. It's pretty in the given position. So let's take a look and see how that worked. After the d5 edicts to the d, white played bishop g2, which basically black played with c6. And now after castling, white makes a bit of a reinforcing move, which we see doesn't let black to come out. He's under a severe pressure, mostly due to the fact that he can't move some of his pieces. I mean, look at that. He can't actually get away with the with the bishop. He can't get away with any of the other pieces, like the queen is bad, the king is down. And that was awesome. It was a great variation that leaves black terrible on a pretty awful position as we go along. It was beautiful. Beautifully played and very, very well done. One of the things that I love so much about this move is that it creates the circumstances. Remember, sometimes the circumstances will be created by your opponent blundering, but sometimes you have to create them. For this to happen, you need to understand that the key question on many times has to be, what do I need to do? Like, what do I want and how do I actually get it? So I think it was pretty clear. The reason for white to become so successful was the possibility to get more circumstance, like more open space for each of his pieces. And that was beautiful. Very good, very steady and attacking. So that was an excellent idea. Very, very effective. So what should white do in this position after short castles? Well, let's take a look. Castling. Now white is fully mobilized, so black played with the move of pawn to f6, blocking that diagonal. And okay, what do we do next? I guess we've got a lot of pressure, but that's just the beginning of it. We can't win just by having that pressure. We need more stuff. Anyone? That is a good position right now. I want to say that because it is a good position. But the continuation is truly necessary. White saw the possibilities and the fact that black will stay behind for the most part. And that was enough to help us really go for the move. e4, rook e1. Shall we do these moves? Definitely rook to the e1 right now. Let's get that rook into the battle. Again, black can't do anything. As I mentioned earlier many times, speed in chess is relative. It actually depends on what your opponent is in condition to do. The good news about this last move that we did is that black is unable to do anything special. So we have the perfect opportunity to set up the rook and bring it on so we can get ready for the attack. A move like pawn up to the e4 is brilliant. And you know what? It's actually going to happen. No matter what we speak or what we say about this, it was like a great resource. And that is true, of course. After that move, then of course, naturally, black is a little down. So he played with bishop e7, king g4, and king f7. Now, I want to answer one question. You know what a lot of chess players are thinking usually? What is the most valuable thing I got to do or I got to think of when I'm attacking? And the truth is that the most valuable thing you have to think for when you're attacking is decide on how can you keep the pressure against your opponent a little bit longer. Yeah, forget the rest. Threats, it's important. Getting more pieces, yes. But the key is to hold him there. Because if you can hold him long enough in the bad position, sooner or later his defense will collapse. That's what Kasparov did with the move d5. It wasn't so much even to make some big threats. It was so that we could keep black on the defense for the most part. And then, sooner or later, his position is going to fall. So let's take a look. Queen g4, king f7, h5, bishop h7. And now, you guys, I want to hear. What would you do? Keep in mind, white's position is great. It's fantastic. We've got space. We've got attacking possibilities. It's all there. It's all good. How do we go now? How do we go about it now? Anyone? h5 followed by e4. Beautiful. Lovely idea. That's exactly what we're supposed to do. It's strong, it's consistent, and it works out brilliantly well. Because the fact is that the sooner we play with the move of pawn to the e4, the easier it is. And then in case of the exchange, knight takes d, we'll just shoot directly through. It was great. Very, very good stuff. What you need to do is think about this. Pieces are great. But at any point, at any given moment, you need to be ready to open up more lines, because having more lines to open is going to give you tremendous success with your position. White knew that, and that's why he actually went on to play this move. It was great. So after the move of e4, black exchanged. Of course, white decided to exchange with the bishop so he can trade off the black's strong light square bishop defender. Exchange, takes, and knight c8. The moment the black knight came down, white played rook to the d1 in this moment. And then after rook a7, now just compare for a second every single one of the white powerfully placed pieces as opposed to black's own force. It's all about that, you know? Threats come and go. It's the pressure, it's the potential that you have. That's the one thing that really remains there. And it's beautiful because white has done it so very well. It's a great idea. So actually, after that move happened, upon that rook a7, which really happened, white has to figure out how to continue, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd play queen g6 or bishop d4. Black's lost. Yes, of course, they're all behind. Then sack. Do we do this? I don't. I think we have to think about this. Black is proverbially screwed. I like that. Thank you. So queen g6. No, he's gonna run down to f8 actually, so it doesn't work. What we have to do is something else. You know, I like to think about a forcing move like queen down there. I love it even, but the reason why I do not like it so much in this position is because I don't see where this is going to lead us. I see his king coming right down, and I do not realize, okay, how is white going to make any progress there? It's a good check, but sure, good checks always exist. The trouble is, how do you make something out of this good check? And I feel a little bad about that because the reality is that there is nothing coming out of this check, despite all the good functionality of the pieces. So something else must happen right now. Anyone? Bishop takes f6. Interesting, but then what if black just takes back with the bishop? I don't like that. D file opening is fine, but then I don't really like the idea given that black can do d5. Knight c5 will allow him to exchange. So ask black to resign? Maybe, but no. Knight takes f for sure. This is great. Now, when you go for a move like that, you've got to sacrifice very carefully. You can't just push in and say, oh, you know what? I love to just give away my knight because it's cool to do it. No, you can't do it without calculation. When you're going for a move of this kind, you better think or calculate it as best as you can. Because if you make even one small mistake, one little tiny bit of a mistake, you're done. I mean, I'm saying it because it's true. You are totally done. You just lose the game. You'll lose the possibilities, everything you've been fighting or going for, whatever. It's done. Just you do it, you lose. So if you want to be careful, if you want to be successful, you have to calculate very precisely and then figure out what you're going to get. In that specific position, knight takes f6 worked out really well because in case black plays with g takes f or bishop takes f, white has a great follow-up continuation. If bishop takes f6, naturally there is a queen to the g6 check, king f8, bishop takes f, and then of course queen takes f doesn't work due to the checkmate. Black has to take back. And then white has this very cute rook 1 to e6, which is brilliant. Black can't take it, and then you get just checkmated. But of course, black has the only way to go take with the pawn. Now, how is this working? Now, here's the point where I'd like to go to tell you about the Golden Compass. No, not that movie that wasn't so good a few years ago. I'm talking about a method that I call the Golden Compass, when basically I'm bringing up the attack on, and then I like to know which path to take so I can bring it and really destroy my opponent. The Golden Concept method basically suggests 4 absolutely necessary steps that you have to take on in order to be successful. Step number 1, you've got to identify the biggest target you're going after. Most naturally, it's the black king. Step number 2 is you have to find out if you have enough attackers. Usually at least 3 good and strong pieces that will help you out with the challenge. Well, White's got more than that. He's got 5 pieces. Step number 3, discover if you have enough open files and diagonals, or if you probably need to open some. Well, I don't think we need to open more than what we have. So White's got definitely a lot more than what you can even expect to be the minimum. And then if you have already all gone over these 3 steps, step number 4 is look at what's defending the opponent best. Find out his best defender, his best guardian, and just take it, kick it, kill it, whatever. Right now, the only main defender that Black had around his position was ultimately the bishop and that pawn. We can actually say that there are 2, in fact 3, the 2 pawns and the bishop. So as soon as we actually destroy an f6, we either challenge his bishop to move, or we take that g7 pawn. So that was what White needed. Immediately after you look at each of those 4 little steps of the golden compass method, what you've got to do is to figure out actually how you can make it work. So what was the Black rating? Ulf Andersson? I don't know. Back in the 1981, the ratings were very different. So he probably had around 25, 600, which is equal to 2070 or more. But the chess was different back in the day, so I think you will just get a wrong impression. I don't think that there were ratings. Anyway, White gives a check, and so we have a pretty critical position. You have to understand that critical positions in chess is where you're actually going to take or decide on an important move that will help you out with the advance. White is doing fantastic here. He's got space, attacking power, and everything is great. Black's king is tied down. It's on the backside position, and it's fantastic to just have that position and attack him from it. I love it. So what happens to be the right way to go ahead and advance right now? Do we go ahead with a tactic of some kind? Do we go ahead with a different type of move? What do we do? Now, the truth is that we've got to figure a way to do something truly important, and that is to coordinate our pieces together. White currently has some very, very good pieces, which unfortunately are not very well coordinated. They're working solo, and that's not bad, but working solo is not enough. What you need to do is to make sure your pieces are actually good enough, and they can do damage. In this case, White's queen was great. But if it could only connect with another piece, that would be already perfect, right? Yeah. Anybody? Bishop c1. Beautiful. Rook e6 works too, but Black could take it, and then he would rather take 2 rooks for a queen. Rook takes d7 may not be enough because he will exchange, as well as bishop takes f, he'll run. But if we play bishop c1, it helps to connect the queen and the bishop together with a very pretty attack. Oh, Valerie, but this is too slow, someone will say. Yeah, but think about this. Speed depends always on what our opponent can do. And given how limited Black's position is and how unable he is to do basically anything, I don't see why we have to worry about that. Well, actually, that was great. After that move, the opponent's pieces are pretty badly placed, and we have the attack coming in. Well, that was great. That was a great deal. After the move, bishop c1, Andersson actually turned out completely undeveloped, and then he played the only thing he could, d5. His intention was, if White takes on h6 and the capture happens, takes will reveal Black's ability to run away. And yeah, I know it's not pretty, but that's the only way. This is his only way out. That's the only thing he's got. So I guess he just wanted to find a way out and run there. So what is White supposed to do now? What do you want to do with White? Take your time and think about it carefully. Now, the way this position looks, it reminds me to one of the situations in which we see how the opponent basically has his hands tied down, and he's just waiting for the kill to come. And the kill comes, and he can't do anything about it. more or less, that's what happened with the next moves. But you've got to. I'm going to let you to find out how white did it. So take your moment, take your time to think about this. What is white supposed to do now? Now rook takes these. No, rook e5, rook d4. Absolutely. Kasparov knew that in order to checkmate black, he needs to bring one more piece in the connection. And I want to tell you how valuable it is that you do not consider only one type of move, that you look at the position from a different angle. He did it beautifully. He looked at the position from a different angle and he asked himself, what do I need? I need to get one more piece to help me out. I need one more attacker so that it can bring the threats against the opponent. One more big force. That is now the rook. With the rook on the line in a beautiful position, the opponent is going to have nothing to defend. And that is incredible. I really recommend you to think about that. Don't think only about what you have and what you can do with it. Think about what you don't have. Think about what you really must do to make this work. With that rook going up in this position, it was a great, brilliant idea, which just worked out fantastic. It was excellent, and there was nothing that black could do really about this because, well, you could see what this is going to do. So rook to d4. Now we have the challenge to move it on, and then after knight d6, rook g4. If we took on the h6, black would have given away the exchange sacrifice, and he would have escaped. But instead of allowing him to do something like that, I just kept on the pressure for a little while longer, and that turns out decisive. Beautiful and decisive. That's right. Rook g4. Of course, the game is more or less over. Black has nothing to do to stop the queen g7 except of knight f7. And I want to know, what would you guys do? Tell me. What would you guys do? That's a good position. You know, so many pieces, so much firepower, so much control. I love that. But it still doesn't answer the question how to make this work, how to make this into something more beautiful. The one thing that you have to do is, yes, when you have a party, you always bring up your friends. Yeah, especially the ones that are sad. Bishop takes h6 is the next bomb that actually just completely blows black's position. It's a very effective move that black can't really respond now with rook takes h6 due to the checkmate. He can't even take with the knight due to queen g7, which leads him to losing the rook. And then his only way to go is to play king e8. But after king e8, of course, white has bishop g7 and black resigned. He resigned simply due to the fact that if rook g8 happens and h6, black can't stop that pawn from moving on to h7. The first time when I saw the game, I was like, wow. I mean, what just happened? Like, this black was completely hammered. And then, rewinding it, when I get to rewind it, it was like I really wanted to see what happened in this case to affect black's position so badly. So what we realize is that black broke the rule of moving twice, and white did it too. So why did he need to end up in such a bad position? And now here is a Grandmaster secret. The middle game position and a lot of the advantages that we consider as successful attacks, weaknesses, better active pieces, and so are very often determined by the value of the pawn structure. So the pawn skeleton that you built still from the very early opening stage is something that will likely determine how the game is going to go or what is actually going to happen with the different sequences. It was pretty to see how that worked so effectively for white, given that he didn't do anything else that was special. He just wanted to get the pieces in the line and make them work fantastic and great. And it did work. It did work beautifully. After the move of g3, e3, white actually gained all that space. He didn't actually think about starting anything too risky. Every single move was in order to keep black under pressure. And the reason why black lost it was because of his bad pawn structure and the resulting terrible pieces that were out there. So there we go. Queen g4, h5, and e4. Every single move was perfect. Kasparov was fantastic. Was bishop g6 the black blunder? I guess probably was. I mean, I think he should have played bishop b7, although many of those things would have still happened. But yes, definitely weakening that diagonal was not that great. Still, it was fantastically played, and the breakthrough, the 4 steps of the golden compass, not the movie, just method I just gave you, it's brilliant. Because what we got to do is think about the main target, the 3 key pieces that we need of more, the open lines which are necessary, and finally the main defender. You know what we call the main defender? The main defender is the piece without which he'd collapse. So if you look around and you say the queen isn't a main defender, no, because without it, it'd be just the same. Is the rook the main defender? No, it's the same. Is the pawn on h6 the main defender? No, it's going to be the same even if it was gone. Is the pawn on g7? Yeah, because there will be nobody defending f6. Is f6 a main defender? Yeah, because if it wasn't there, we would be able to give a check on f5 or maybe even take g7 with our bishop. Is the bishop the main defender? Yes, because without it, we'd be able to take there and kill him on the e-file. So you see, that's how you find the main defenders, the pieces without which he would have lost if they were not there. So naturally, we say to ourselves, okay, I know. I now know what I have to fight against, and I know what kind of move to do. Every single move was super good, forcing, and the final straw was how White coordinated his pieces. Never forget that the secret of any successful attack is the ability to get your pieces together. Not just around and nice and pretty, together. This means like they have to support one another. That is what we call coordination. To support and attack, not like the king supporting the pawn, but like the queen and bishop attacking h6. But I do hope that you like this game as much as I did. It was a fabulous game which introduced a lot of interesting concepts of how to think and what to do, and how masters really designed their play like that. But this next game is really awesome. It's an excellent game which is so beautiful and at the same time really impressive, as a matter of fact. So let me bring it to you and explain you the way on how that worked and what it was all about. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to set it up now. The game was played between Michael Tal. He doesn't need introduction. And his opponent was a pretty good player, was named Forbes. Now, I would like to say this was a game of played on the simultaneous exhibition, but that does not diminish the opportunities that Tao was able to take. This game, on the contrary, makes it very effective to see the difference between a grandmaster and a beginner and what you can do to punish your opponent if he makes important positional mistake. Punish him in the grandmaster way. While you're doing that, though, please do not forget to email me in case you want me to send you these examples. You might actually want to send me an email to valeri.lilov@gmail.com. So I'll be very happy to bring you with the PGNs files or the examples of these games or anything else that you may need on some of the topics. Or you can always visit my website and send me your games or questions, whatever you want, so I can take a look. It's tigerlilov.com. In the meantime, check out that link below this video, which provides 60% off a fantastic bundle on Grandmaster lectures by the famous Grandmaster Eugen Perlstein. He is a fantastic teacher, so you might want to check 60% off just for the night. So now let's talk about this game. So I just got a question. How did I decide in which pawn structure to play with? Valeri, before you leave. Oh, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Hey, I'm here, and we're going to see a pretty game. So stay tuned for a little while longer. All right. Let's take a look. I was playing white. This was in 1988. I wasn't born back in the day. But I remember my dad actually told me that he visited one of Tal's simultaneous exhibitions. And he said Tal was one of the kindest persons he's seen. He saw him smiling and taking pictures. And the moment the simul started, I mean, this was a simul against actually kids, the moment the simul started, Tao's face suddenly changed. My dad said he looked like a killer. you know, he was like he couldn't recognize him, and he was very funny because like when he was just telling me that story, I was like, really? I mean, what do you mean? And he was like, this is the condition the grandmasters get into. They get into this very, very like strong condition, so they forget about anything else and they focus on the game so much. No matter who they're playing. So if I can tell you one definitive grandmaster secret that you can learn from the great champions, it is the focus. Remember that in most of the games we play, our mind is constantly drifting. This is an important observation I've made many years ago. And what I mean by drifting is we either wait for our opponent to make a move, or we basically choose to consider some things that will never happen. We calculate slowly, or we just count the flies, whatever. And this is a condition that strong grandmasters never like to have. They always like to do something useful, and that doesn't necessarily have to do with calculating many lines. They just evaluate the position. So if you want to get to a master level, learn to evaluate the position. Forget the rest, evaluate it. Because if you get to evaluate the position more effectively, you will improve and overcome the level you're at and reach the strongest level. Don't study openings. Forget about super complicated positions. Simply learn to develop your positional sense, to learn to evaluate the positions properly. That's the secret. So let's have a look. Let's take a look and see what happened. Tau was white. It started with e4. Now we'll go, because we were a bit short on time, we'll go through the opening kind of quickly because that wasn't really the important time of the game. So there was the Sicilian, knight f6, knight c3. Then black played g6, bishop e3, bishop g7. So basically, white played f3, knight c6, and queen d2. So this is the dragon. Basically, black is setting up an easy development, which will help him to attack on the queen side, while white is going to do more or less the same on the king side. He sets up the bishop to control this square, and black did knight b7. Now, this is not a great move. It's moving twice with a single piece in the opening, but more importantly, it's moving the knight that's usually very helpful protecting the h7 and h5. Amateurs tend to play these moves a lot, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't notice them. But what I've seen by many chess players, they try to punish the opponent for making these moves. Do not punish or try to punish him. The more important thing that you'd like to do is to focus your attention on building up your position. Let him go on with the bad, passive, backward moves, whatever he's doing. These moves will have a very negative long-term effect to his position. For this reason, we don't have to do anything too special. White did just h4. So Tau knew that whatever black is trying to do is not going to work, and yet the speed with which we can get to develop and continue our plan will be more important than any quick endeavor that the opponent may have on the queen side. So now he threatens knight c4. What would you do, guys? Just tell me what you think. I want to hear your thoughts and your suggestions. What is white supposed to do now? Queen e2. Yeah. I mean, okay, so basically there's like, okay, queen to the e2. Yeah, because you're stabilizing. Not a bad idea. I actually like that. But, the bishop, the queen e2 castle, queen e2 is going to be a fine-looking move, although it's going to tie a queen down to protect the square. And it's not going to be for that long because black would just play knight queen c7, so it's not great. We could, of course, try to do the move of g4 or longside castling, but then black would still do knight c4. So what did Tau do? Apparently, I was just talking about development, so everybody will be like, longside castle, let's not care. Indeed, that's possible. But when there is a move that doesn't pose a risk to our position, and yet we can make pressure, we want to use it. Tau just continued with h5. Something important you'll recognize in all important Grandmaster games is that they love putting pressure against the opponent. They just love doing that. When they put pressure, whatever tactics or sequences your opponent has prepared, they will never match what the challenge you create is going to be. Like after queen e2, black suddenly realized that if he takes b2, most likely his knight's going to get trapped or something like that. I mean, let's see about this. If he plays now knight instead of b2, I think he would lose. Let me see. If he does it, then what can white try? I think what white could do is just going to be the very simple h takes g, or rook to b1 actually. Let's see, knight takes to b, rook b1, and after queen c7, I think white can go with knight d5, and then black's knight will be gone. So he can't do this. And yeah, so black played knight d3, and I mean, like, he was like, okay, what's the problem? I've taken away the two bishops. I'm successful, right? Bishop d7, long side castling, and east. Now of course, black was a little worried that there may be knight d5 for some jumps. So okay, he said, I don't want to let that happen. So let's play e6. So what's the worry? I spent a few times with the knights, but I've taken away your bishops. I got a long-term advantage. I delayed my development, but you can't do anything against me. So what do you think Tal did about that? I mean, black was trying to play smart here. He was trying to outsmart Mikhail Tal. Do you know how very few people in the world have ever done that? To outsmart Mikhail Tal, it's like to say you can outsmart Bobby Fischer. Now that almost sounds like a joke, but really, black was just trying that. He said, I'm going to escape the conventional routes, and I'm going to prove that Tal may be great, and yet I can think better than him. That's what black was thinking. So what does Tal have to do about that? Anyone? h6. Well, that's going to be a not good move, because then black will just retreat, and then we've closed down the file. Yes, there is f4. Absolutely perfect. This next move illustrates how important it is to open files. You see, the great players like Tal, Fischer, Botvinnik, Karpov, Kasparov, Carlsen even, they're great at using simple concepts to perfection to help their strategies. So if you think that becoming a grandmaster and being a great player is about learning to calculate or remember a lot or have this brilliant, like photographic memory, it's not. It's really just about getting good enough at using some of the simplest and yet very important principles to improve your game. What white wanted to do with that last move was to open the route of the queen, as well as prepare for f5, which would have not only challenged black's defenses, but also as a result of the pawn trades, he would get a brilliant open file directly against black. It was a very simple move, yet very logical and consistent. Black developed, but now white continues with f5, and as you can see, the real issue is that there is no time. But while black actually spent time in bringing the knights and taking away the bishop pair, white used that time to complete his development. And now when black needs the time so he can defend, he doesn't have it. Yet the bishop pair does not prove anyhow useful. If black played e5, he would have lost. There would have been the beautiful knight e7 here, takes with a checkmating threat. And then after f takes g, well, that's pretty bad actually. Checkmate. Or in case of this, checkmate. So we have taken checkmate with the queen. So actually, white just kept on going. f5. If the pawn pushes, the knight jumps, and that's dangerous. Black couldn't do it. So he did g takes f, pawn takes f, and maybe a little bit of a protective move. Now what do we do here? Black is trying to stay safe. He just wants to do it. How do we get to carry on the attack? I really want to know. Everything feels good. But what to do now? Let's talk about that. Black is trying to stay safe, and we have a situation now because we've got to figure out a precise way to do things right. I want to hear what you guys have to say. The way I look at this position, it seems to me like white has to do something, but it's not that clear what exactly that is supposed to be. Maybe we could try to challenge an attack against him on the queen side, the king side, to open up some line, perhaps. What do we do? I like that question. What do we do? And when people get into positions like that, they get frustrated. Now, remember what I said. The most viable thing that you need in order to be successful with your attack is to make sure that you can maintain the pressure against your opponent for as long as you can. That is not going to be too easy. But what is important is you don't get frustrated if you can't continue the attack fast, yet you have to try and focus on playing moves that just keep you or help you to actually keep the tension. White made the move rook hf1, which can actually confuse many people because this seems like a move that doesn't do much. Yet we realize that this move is keeping the pawn on f5 protected, and yet it maintains white's great pressure. Now we have f6, of course, as a threat, and then black realized that the moment if he tries e5 and f6 happens, this is going to be a completely losing position. Maybe f takes g first with the check, or just rook takes d3. It doesn't matter. So quiet moves are an invaluable part of our attack. Do not forget them. So if you don't see any immediate breakthrough or direct way forward, make a quiet move. Stabilize your position. Keep your pressure against the opponent. Sooner or later it will transform. You can't control that. What you can control is how you're able to maintain the challenge, to keep him on the back foot. Now that is what makes an attack successful. And black's nerves just didn't hold. I mean, f6 was too much of a threat and all the other moves, so he decided, let's exchange the knight. Now you're probably wondering what would have happened, Valerie, if black did bishop e5 to defend there. He could have. Most likely that was the better move. But then white would have continued with g4 and just carry on the attack. So black actually decided that maybe through exchanges, he will deal with the pressure, e5. But he didn't realize what came. So what does Tal do now? I mean, black is going to exchange the queens now once the rook moves. And then he's going to have two great-looking pawns and a good-looking bishop. And then that's it. Tal made a mistake. Tal blundered. You know what? He did kind of blunder, right? Right? That sounds wrong. I mean, what did we talk all about if Tal was going to blunder? I mean, okay, that was a simul game, but we're talking about Tal. So there's got to be something, right? Knight d5 will be met by queen takes d4, so it just wouldn't really do that much. Damn, this looks bad, right? No, it doesn't. White found out that black has no development or preparation behind the pieces. So remember what I told you about potential. You just can't use any defense or any successful attack if you have backward pieces. How is black supposed to counter white with all those backside pieces? Well, as you recommended, queen h6. Tal knew it just wasn't right. Black cannot do something with all of his pieces on the backside. So the rook goes, but then we have a check here. Now there's another question. If we play h6, he'll defend it. What do we do? Can't do that. But we can do knight d5. It was amazing because black, with the threat is knight e7 check, black cannot take it. Now, due to the fact that we could do, actually, we could even try to do, h6 would be met by queen takes g2. So now you're probably wondering, okay, but did white just blunder again? Well, no, because there's queen h5, then h6, defending the pawn. And then when the rook comes, we have a checkmate. It's kind of pretty, actually. It's the energy that white has with the fewer pieces that he's got is more important than the completely passive pieces that are many. So fewer are better than many when the fewer are more well coordinated and active. Check. Most naturally, king f8 fails due to check and check. Black's got to go back. And there was h6, creating again the checkmating threats here. Black tried to cover it, but then there was f6, another check. Now, for a moment, Black thought, okay, maybe this is the end. Maybe I did stop that, right? I did stop it. Black White's queen has to go, and then the attack is over, and it's all done. Yeah? Was he right? Was Black right? Did White lose? No, he didn't. There's Queen G7. And then this is the final straw, which actually helps White to use both the queen and the knight in effect to coordinate and deliver a brilliant checkmate. Typical Tao, right? Tao never makes a mistake. Well, he has done some, but not in this game. And in this game, what I love about it so much was just how effective it was, the speed. White didn't really care about all these positional features because the positional features don't matter when it comes down to development. The development always gives you more. The space gives you more. And yet the brilliant opportunity to open up the files, which you can remember is an integral part of any successful attack, really gave White what he needed most in this game. Attack, potential to continue and hold that pressure over Black's position. It was just awesome. I love the move of Queen H6, but it was only possible because of all these small things like gaining more tempi, getting the open lines, weakening the Black King side. Only then the tactic is possible. So if you think that you can make combinations like that just because you've worked in more tactics, think again. You can only do combinations like that if you learn how to back them up with the proper amount of positional background. That makes a tactic like this really possible. It was a great game indeed, and the way and how White led the attack with constant forcing moves, beautiful too. The end checkmate just ends it, and it makes it for a masterpiece. So I hope you guys enjoyed that game as much as I did, and you were able to learn about some of the principles that make such attacks successful. So take borrowing a little bit of the magic of a Grandmaster to make us play better and defeat some of our opponents. That's good enough. So thank you all for joining me tonight. If you have any questions or anything you would like to ask me, feel free to send me a message to my email, which is valeri.lilov@gmail.com, or send to me like your suggestion or game or question to my website, tigerlilov.com. And yeah, just if you want me to send you those 2 games too, just send me the message. I'll be very happy to provide you with about these games with annotations. And so thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be having a next lecture, next webinar on the coming Saturday, next week, same day, same time. Again, I'm sorry a little bit for the small delay with a few minutes today. Thank you all for joining me. And don't forget to check the link below this video so you can get 60% off a brilliant bundle by Grandmaster Eugen Perlstein. Awesome lectures. Check them out. I think this is going to help your openings and your middle game a lot. So thanks, and have a great time and a nice weekend.